Good morning. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today. We are excited to present this webinar so you could see and experience the IBC demo working with Flame from AWS Cloud. Of course, key solution that Streambox brings to this workflow is the ultra-low latency reference video from the cloud to your edit base, offices, or homes, or wherever you may be working from. I would like to introduce today's panel. Stefan Lebre, he's a Senior Product Owner at Flame. Zach Wellner, Senior Product Solutions Architect at AWS. And of course, Alex Telson, Streambox CTO and co-founder. Alex?
Thank you, Bob. Can everyone hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So today we'll be talking about Autodesk Flame running on AWS Cloud and controlled remotely, for example, from your home or office locations. Immediate users for these solutions are visual effect artists, editors, colorists, who could do, and also clients for real-time reviews and approvals. Key problems that Streambox solves are reference monitoring and cloud sessions for your clients. Let's look at the key features that make it possible. Firstly, you really need high quality, color accurate, and full frame rate video monitoring at your home or office. We would provide up to 4K 444 12-bit video from the cloud to your reference monitor at home. We do support HDR and most color space that used in post-production. Secondly, overall latency is very critical for real-time feedback when you're working with Flame. In most cases, you really want to get under 100 milliseconds of latency for precise control. And Streambox can go as little as 70 milliseconds. Another critical item is audio, and we could deliver up to 16 channels. Additionally, we can deliver video over modern residential cable networks, so the fiber is not really required. Easy to set up is another key item. We will provide simple session code to connect reference monitor behind firewall. You could also use up to 256-bit AES encryption using this solution. For reference video playback, you could also use either hardware or software clients. Now, let's look at the overall workflow so it's easier to understand. Flame is running on AWS on a single instance with Streambox Spectra. And Spectra is essentially a software encoder. You control Flame via some kind of remote solution like Teradici or NiceDCV from your home. Now, the Spectra encoder is actually dual channel. So as you could see, one stream is point-to-point for high quality, low latency reference monitoring. And it could be up to 412-bit with full color. And the second stream is going to Streambox Cloud for Streambox session that customers usually use for live review approvals. Now, Flame and Streambox are communicating via AWS CDI, which is uncompressed and very low latency. And let's talk a little bit about AWS CDI. CDI is Cloud Digital Interface, and it delivers uncompressed video for real-time applications. Key factor here is it's uncompressed. So unlike NDI, it does not introduce any quality issues. It's very low delay. It's open source. And we could talk a little more about CDI as well in the end of this presentation. Now, there is second workflow that we provide when you don't want to run encoder on the same VM as Flame. Imagine that you have multiple artists, each on its own dedicated VM. In this case, you could use a product called Streambox Bridge. It is essentially a multi-channel CDI encoder and decoder. You could send individual streams from Flame to Streambox Bridge. And then you could output individual streams to reference monitors or to the cloud sessions. Streambox Bridge is currently available on AWS Marketplace. Another reason to separate VM, it could be for security reasons, and also this provides dedicated encoders for your workflow. Now, let's look at what we provide on receiving side for reference monitoring. You could use our hardware boxes such as Halo or Chrome product line, but also you could use our software. Advantages of hardware is remote management and monitoring. It also provides high security and overall performance. On the flip side, software could be very useful for rapid deployments or to save cost. On the hardware side, the primary device that we recommend is Streambox Halo. It's a very quiet desktop unit that you could put at your creative artist at home or your colorist. It comes in two versions, 12G Quad SDI or 6G version. 6G version also output HDMI simultaneously. On software side, we recommend to use Streambox Iris. It will run on macOS or Windows with any of Blackmagic video output devices. Depending on your hardware you have or license you have, it could go up to 4K 12-bit 444. And lastly, briefly about cloud sessions. The cloud sessions you use to stream to your clients for review and approvals. If you're not familiar with Streambox sessions, basically you send email invite to your clients. They click on the link and they can review live stream in full color and quality. It will open an application for them. Latency is usually higher for those sessions, but sub-second is pretty common. We can deliver both SDR and HDR. We support iPads, including newer mini LED iPads, Apple TV, macOS, and Windows. And now we'll switch to our video demo.
This Flame demo. Flame instance is located in Oregon, and I'm connected to it remotely via a nice DCV client. On the right side here is Streambox Media Player, and we use Media Player so we could show you side by side on the same screen. Latency overall would be very similar to hardware decoder. Maybe this is one frame more than hardware decoder. On top right, web control for dual channel Spectre encoder. First, let me show you how to configure video settings. You go to Preferences, Broadcast Monitor. You could select CDI output and different color sampling and bit depth profile, 12, 10-bit, 8-bit, 422. You could also select different CDI options. For this particular demo, you don't have to because it is CDI from Flame directly to Spectre on the same instance, so it's not going to change the settings. We could select different resolutions and frame rate. Again, for this demo, I will use 60 frames per second to get the lowest possible latency. The higher frame rate, the less is latency. Even though timeline is still 24, we'll be streaming at 60. Let me show you regular playback. Latency is very similar between remote desktop and Streambox Media Player. The difference is that Media Player is actually 444 full color, in this case 10-bit, could be 12-bit, full frame rate. Unlike remote desktop, it will not drop frames because it's running UDP protocol here and encoding every frame. And we could show that it's very responsive. I could scrub, basically go backwards, so on. It acts as your regular video output, like you will have with Azure connected to your monitor locally. Let me show you next color control workflow, color correction. I could adjust and see results right away. Because it's less than 100 milliseconds, it's very responsive. So what you want to get with remote monitoring to get below that 100 millisecond mark, then it feels like you at that workstation. I would also like to mention that I'm currently at a regular residential cable connection, Comcast cable connection that is rated at 1 gigabit per second. Actual video encoder is running at 50 megabits per second, and half of that is forward error correction or redundancy, so you could compensate for any packet loss on residential line. Of course, it will depend what connection you have. Overall current latency is about 4 frames end-to-end, which at 60 frames per second about 60 milliseconds. And my particular latency to head to the location at AWS is 20 milliseconds. So total latency at this demo is 80 milliseconds. But comparative latency to remote desktop is almost identical. There is virtually no difference, maybe 1 frame difference. So yeah, that's overall demo. Thank you.
Stefan, if you want to say a few words about beta program, please.
Thank you very much, Alex, for this great presentation. So this is very exciting because, I mean, last spring at NAB, we launched Flame 2023 on AWS Cloud. So we had the chance to be, at a trade show showing at the AWS booth, Flame, our, great product, super interactive on the cloud. And people were very excited because, working remotely with, the back end of AWS is a great workflow. And of course, everybody was asking, how do you monitor? How do you use, in fact, high fidelity, high quality? This is not something we had at that moment. And then talking with AWS, who was working on CDI and also Streambox, at IBC, we were able to show our technology demo on their development version that you have seen today. So we are still working on developing this capability in Flame. So if you are interested to work with us to make, these great capabilities in our product, so please join the charter, the testing program at flamebeta@autodesk.com. So you could be, running this development build, give feedback, and help us deliver this great remote workflow. If you want to know more about Flame, there's the address on the screen. We just released Flame 2023.2 updates, which contains great capabilities, which of course CI is not part of because we are developing it. So, but again, thank you very much, Alex and Streambox people and CI at AWS for making these remote workflow possible at high quality, low latency.
Thank you, Stefan. To summarize, for this workflow, everything is broken in the cloud. Streambox provides high quality reference signal and sessions, and latency could be as low as 70 milliseconds. And now we open to Q&As.
So it looks like Javier has a question around the software client or hardware versions. Alex, you want to take that?
For software clients, there new versions coming on with new macOS and iOS release. I believe it happens on October 24. But you could all previous clients are compatible. There is some updates for new clients to go higher frame rate and use new features of iOS devices. All existing hardware devices are compatible.
We have another question from Josh asking if there's any plans to support Baselight in the cloud as well.
Short answer is yes. I'm not sure if you could disclose anymore. And Zach, there is a question about CDI specifically. Could you describe more about CDI?
Yeah, absolutely. So CDI is built in AWS to be a method to transport uncompressed video from EC2 instance to EC2 instance. And it uses SRD, which is scalable, reliable datagram, instead of TCP or UDP. So it's able to traverse the AWS network really effectively. It has a very high throughput. You can utilize 100 gigabit EFA adapter to process or send multiple streams of 4K 60 or beyond. And it has extremely low latency. It should be sub-frame latency for encoding or decoding the CDI streams. So those are some of its benefits.
Thank you, Zach. Question, how can we join beta?
That's quite easy. If you drop an email to flamebeta@autodesk.com, this is the email address we use to receive, beta requests. So just email us, and we'll discuss of the terms of the beta program. But this is quite straightforward. So email us if you want today. I see some question in the related to what type of instance we run Spectra and Flame on. So G4DN at 8X large is what you need to run this technology. So it's quite, in fact, this is the instance Flame runs on. So this is not something, exceeding our base minimum requirement on the cloud. So this is a good instance with the NVIDIA graphics. Availability of the beta version of Flame. So we are targeting somewhere next week. So if you email us today, you could join the beta program. We have a nice portal where beta sites will be able to discuss with the various vendor, AWS, and of course Streambox, so we can narrow down configuration issue, bugs, and success while testing this product. We don't have a release date yet because we prefer take our time, making sure that we work with production people to see how the beta version behaves in production, and when we're going to be ready, we're going to release, and we're going to put that in our release cycle probably later this year or the next, depending of the feedback we get. But we want to take our time and make it a great experience for end users.
Thank you, Stefan. And to add, when both Streambox and Flame running on the same instance, really Streambox is software-only solution, so it does not use much of the GPU. And on the flip side, Flame is mostly GPU-based, so they work very well on AWS GPU instance.
And Alex, some of the benefits I think of CDI are that if you don't want to tax the CPU on that same instance, you can transmit
right. So the
uncompressed video to the separate encoder.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Right. So and so you could send that CDI stream, or actually multiple CDI streams, to separate VM. Streambox Bridge that is available on Marketplace. If you search for Streambox Bridge, you could actually spin up instance just in a few minutes and test it, basically. Yeah.
Someone asked when will this be available? AWS, and then
so Spectra would be at the same time when you contact Autodesk for install. We also provide from our side documentation how run installer. So I assume it's about next week for beta version.
Absolutely, this is what we are targeting. We are finalizing, our base test to make sure the configuration, the application behaves correctly on the cloud. But yeah, we should have something, available for testing next week.
Is the a question about bandwidth requirement?
Generally, you need about 20 megabits for HD resolution, and depending on if it's good line. If line is bad, we recommend 50, so you could add a little, not a little bit, a lot of correction. Generic requirement for review sessions, for color, we recommend 12 megabits for HD, and about 50 megabits for 4K. If depending on your content or workflow, 4K could go as low as 25 megabits. So yeah, that's basic requirements. On the top end, if you go to say 20 feet screen, you could go as high as 200 megabits if necessary. But normally, most customers at high end run maybe 80 to 100 megabits.
Yeah, I would like to thank everyone for joining today's webinar. And of course, I'd like to thank Stefan, Zach for their participation, and Alex for a great presentation. Thank you.